Good afternoon, everybody, at least to those on the East Coast. Good morning on the West Coast. I'm Neil A. Carousso. Pleasure to be with you on this Sunday. Very cold here in New York, and boy, has it been one hell of a week. And let's start with the joint address that President Trump had in front of Congress on Tuesday, and Democrats resisted despite his non-ideological speech. It was powerful. It was emotional at times. We'll play you some sound later from that, and it was spot on, a delivery that was different in tone, with the same message. And Americans felt much better. The polls showed that they felt more confident in him after the joint address to Congress as opposed to his more boisterous speech at the inauguration address. However, that feeling only lasted for about a day. And then that's when there are reports that come out. Interesting timing, by the way. And I found it weird that Democrats resisted and would not applaud and refused to even acknowledge some things that President Trump is more left-leaning on, like parental leave, maternity leave, like infrastructure plan. He proposed a bigger infrastructure plan than President Barack Obama did under his presidency. So they still would not show any love or respect, for that matter, for the president. Now, the next day, in an interesting timing, reports came out that then Senator, now Attorney General Jeff Sessions, met with Russian ambassadors. Really, this is the Democratic narrative. Every week you are hearing about the Russians, okay? What we know, just to make it clear off the top, they did not hack the election. They couldn't have, because they never changed any votes, and Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. I guess they only remind us when it's in their favor. But President Trump did win the electoral vote. And Senator Jeff Sessions met with ambassadors, the ambassador of Russia, Sergei Kislyak, as did Democrats, met with him as well. In fact, Democrats met with him over, 7 Democratic senators in 2013 met with Kislyak. And the Obama administration met with Kislyak at least 22 times between 2009 and 2016. This according to a public document, that being the guest book in the White House. So we know that the Russians, they're doing their job, at least their ambassadors are coming here and trying to be just that, an ambassador to our country and get to know our culture. And Kislyak apparently is very well known within Congress. Meets with senators like Sessions, who's part of the Armed Services Committee, and other members of Congress in trying to develop a relationship with America. Remember the Russian reset, when Hillary Clinton gave a reset button? Which was misspelled. But anyway, most presidents have been trying to build up relationships with Russia, so this narrative is confusing. Now, this morning, Trump fired off some tweets, and here's what he said. He said, terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. He continues, is it legal for a sitting president to wiretapping a race for president prior to an election? Turned down by court earlier, that is true, a new low. I bet a good lawyer can make a great case out of the fact that President Obama was tapping my phones in October, just prior to the election. And lastly, in his Saturday morning tweet, Rampage, he said, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during a very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate. Bad or sick guy. And, we'll get into the details on that. Here's how President Barack Obama responded in a statement put out by Kevin Lewis, his spokesman. And he said, cardinal rule of the Obama administration was that no White House official ever interfered with an independent investigation, and went on to say that this suggestion is false. But let's go over the facts for you and what we know from public documents. Well, in June 2016, President Obama filed for FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, that in June 2016, to monitor communications between Trump and his advisors. He did file this request. That was denied in June 2016. And we know President Obama was adamantly against Trump and was really pushing for Hillary Clinton to be the president. We know that. In October, a FISA request focused on a computer server in Trump Tower. suspected of links, to Russian spies, Russian banks, rather. Now, those wiretaps in Trump Tower, they exist. They went to monitor the Trump organization. No evidence, of course, was found, but those did exist. And we know now that with all these intelligence leaks that are mounting, that in January 2017, and just to go through the timeline for you so that you know, because this is not being discussed, that dossier that came out, compiled by a foreign spy, saying that Russians have compromising information on Trump, that was put out there, that was leaked from inside the intelligence community. In January, Obama expands the power of the NSA. Did you know this? He expanded the power of the NSA to share globally intercepted personal communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies. And that was before applying privacy protections. End quote. The day before the inauguration, another leak came out. The New York Times reported that the FBI, CIA, NSA, and Treasury Department are monitoring Trump associates and their alleged ties to Russia. This is all being played out in the public when these are private investigations, politicizing of intelligence, which is always wrong. And these are classified leaks, and you go to jail for leaking classified information. And then, in February last month, the Flynn-Kislyak conversations, Flynn had conversations with the Russian ambassador, that was leaked. And he was just doing his job. The problem was, Flynn lied about it to the Vice President Mike Pence, and that's why he was fired. But he was doing his job and communicating ahead of getting into office so that the Trump administration could start off on the ground running. Nothing wrong with that. I wish people would continue to do their jobs in Congress. But also last month, the New York Times cites 4 current and former American officials in reporting that the Trump camp had repeated contacts with senior Russian intel officials. No knowledge of why. That very well could be that they were doing their job and communicating as the incoming administration was preparing to take office. But this was leaked. And then last week, the Washington Post reports that Sessions had contact with the Russian ambassador. Well, he was also in the Senate Armed Services Committee, and in his job description says to communicate with ambassadors of all foreign countries. And the meetings had nothing to do with the campaign, but as you saw in the intro clip, now Attorney General Jeff Sessions has recused himself of the case because he doesn't want anything to stink up the investigation, and he wants to make sure that it's done properly. Remember when Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac on a private plane while Hillary Clinton was being investigated for the email server? Why didn't Loretta Lynch recuse herself? Why weren't Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi calling for her resignation? If you want to compare apples to apples. Very comparable situation. And then, now remember, if you want to talk about Russians, let me give you a little flashback. March 2012, President Barack Obama in Seoul, South Korea, or North Korea rather, met with the then Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev. Take a look at this.
I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
Caught on a hot mic. What does that mean that he's going to make himself available to Vladimir Putin? Yeah, the same one that they're attacking Trump, that they're friends, apparently. And then you have this. Okay, while the Obama administration leftovers are still there in Washington, D.C., because the Democrats are obstructing Trump's cabinet picks, you have the Daily Mail reporting Saturday that former Obama senior advisor Valerie Jarrett moves into Obama's new Washington, D.C. home to help with a, quote, insurgency against President Trump as setting up a nerve center to ensure that Trump's administration is not successful. What happened to when you succeed, the whole country succeeds? Well, while he's living in Washington, D.C., his daughter finishes up school, and you have Obama administration staffers still in Washington, D.C., you have a potential, at least this is what the report is, that they are meddling into the Trump campaign. And the New York Times reported this week that that the Obama administration, that President Barack Obama himself, left intelligence leaks, left a trail of them in the White House so that they would be found and leaked in the media to hurt President Trump, because he did not trust Trump in how he would handle the situation with Russia. So he left a trail behind to be leaked. This according to the New York Times this week. Where are we as a country where politics is put above national security? Now, this morning, Press Secretary Sean Spicer tweeted this out, and this is what the headline is as we speak on Sunday. Reports concerning potentially politically motivated investigations immediately ahead of the 2016 race are troubling. President Trump is requesting that as part of their investigation into Russian activity, the Congressional Intelligence Committee's exercise that oversight authority to determine whether executive branch investigative powers were abused in 2016 by President Obama. Neither the White House nor the President will comment further until the oversight is conducted. That via the Press Secretary Sean Spicer this morning on Twitter. So President Trump is taking this very seriously. Do you think he would request an investigation if he didn't know that something fishy was going on? Whether Trump Tower, as we see by reports, was wiretapped to find out about Trump's advisors' ties? Well, were they monitoring President Trump and maybe trying to gain an advantage over their political adversary? Because what we found in WikiLeaks was that the Democrats were trying to do everything they could to dig up dirt on President Trump. And I have a feeling that if they found anything, or President Trump did anything wrong, I think we would know about it, especially with those like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer already calling for President Trump's impeachment over nothing. We are, 46 days in to the Trump presidency? Can we give him a chance and try to have our country succeed? I feel like a broken record by saying this. With all these intelligence leaks, with the Obama administration still in, Obama's cabinet wasn't obstructed. They gave him a chance. And it's about time that the country comes together. Trump is doing all he can. And in fact, he had some private meetings down in Mar-a-Lago. He's coming back from Mar-a-Lago to the White House this afternoon. He had some private meetings there with Jeff Sessions and his national security team. And obviously trying to handle this the best they could. But remember, he's the president. He knows everything now. At least he should, unless they're withdrawing information from him. So he's our leader. Let's give him a chance. Wouldn't that make sense? And let's stop the nonsense and the political games. The intelligence, politicizing intelligence and national security is wrong. That is un-American. Now, if you want to call in, you can call us in on Skype. If you want to comment at Carousso on Skype, we'd love to hear about your calls. But frankly, this is outrageous. And then you have a senior advisor moving in to set up a nerve center against President Trump. I mean, what happened to, remember when George W. Bush left? He did not talk about President Obama. He did not criticize him, despite knowing the major ideological differences. So that's where we're at, apparently, as a country where everyone just attacks the president and doesn't understand or give them the benefit of the doubt. And it's really a problem when you look at the timeline and you see that there are definitely things fishy going on. You may very well hear, but I don't know whether this is going to play out in the mainstream media. You may very well hear that Obama did wiretap Trump Tower, as we see from wiretapping his advisors. What does that mean in terms of the Trump administration? What does that mean for Obama? Does he get put on trial? So that's where we're at. It's very scary, and they're doing everything in their power to get Trump out of there and not let him succeed. We take your comments on Skype next, plus later, Michael Cutler, retired immigration agent, joins me for an exclusive about the drug epidemic in the country. That on the Carousso Show coming up.
you got it?
You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
It's time to open the dialogue, grab a cup of coffee, and chat with Neil A. Carousso via Skype.
All right, we're back on the Neil A. Carousso Show. It's really amazing how this news cycle just switches constantly. What was it the other day? Thursday, I believe it was. I was talking to Nick, who's one of our tech guys over here, and he's signaling the time right now. Apparently, at 5 minutes on the second. Nick does a great job. Nick was here on Thursday, and I said to him, I said, I don't know, and I had the podcast during the week. I don't know what I'm even going to do because the news cycle changed about 5-6 times that day within hours of each other. It really is unbelievable. Let's take your calls now. Let's go to the phones, and we have Skype anyway. Alex from Long Island. Alex, how are you?
I'm good, Neil. Thank you for having me on the show. What I wanted to talk to you about today is Trump's cabinet and what's going on there.
Sure.
And I first would like to say, as a Republican, you're not a good Republican if you can't criticize your own. And here, I think a lot of mistakes are being made.
Yeah, now I think that, there are certainly mistakes. There were the Flynn situation could have been handled better. What mistakes stick out to you the most? And you're a Republican yourself?
As a Republican, I would say what's going on with Sessions is what's the most concerning.
Okay, how so?
Just in the ties to Russia, in what happened with his KKK comment, what I wanted to see when Trump took office was a much more clean set of initiative and less scrutiny over the candidates, and he knows which ones have any sort of a dark past or dark enough for the media to jump all over it. And I think that
Sessions prosecuted the KKK in Alabama and ultimately led to their demise. I know that the Democratic line and the Democratic Party is to attack Sessions and call him a racist, but in reality, he led to their demise and he desegregated schools in Alabama. In fact, when he prosecuted the KKK member, he got the death penalty and ensured he got the death penalty as Attorney General down in Alabama. Now, I know that some of these things have been vetted. In fact, Sessions, what I would say to you is that Sessions should have came out openly because, now, obviously, he wasn't thinking about it, thinking, have I talked about the campaign with anyone? No. Clearly, that's what he was thinking. But for full disclosure, and this is where he's getting caught with his pants down, he should have, with full disclosure, said at the congressional hearings for his confirmation hearings, he should have said, I did meet with the Russian ambassador as part of my Senate job. And this is what we discussed, and here's what's on the record. Right?
Right, yeah.
Anything else that he should have done?
Just, it should have been done in a much cleaner way, and if there are leaks coming from the Obama administration, as we were talking about before, Trump needs to anticipate the punches. A good fighter knows when the other opponent is going to throw at him, and he needs to be prepared. He can't just be blindsided and say, well, I didn't anticipate this. And there just should have been a much cleaner go. He had a lot of people that he needed to convince that he was the right guy for the job, and this is not the best way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's not a smooth rollout for sure of the cabinet. And two things that I would say to that. Number one, the Obama administration, and clearly Barack Obama, according to the New York Times this week, made sure that leaks were going to occur and set a trail for them. Now, I don't know how he did it, because obviously I'm not in government. I don't know how they hid this bureaucratic leakage, but they did it in such a way that Trump didn't know about it, or he only became aware about it when it hit the media. And like you said, that blindsided him. That's wrong, and the president should know everything. But clearly, something's going on that he's not knowing everything, and that bothers me. And so, second, is the Trump administration? Is it the White House that's leaking? We don't know 100% sure if that's the case or not. Obviously, we heard last week or the week before, the press secretary checked everyone's phones in the White House to make sure that nobody within the administration was leaking. But it seems like an intelligence and a bureaucratic problem in D.C. Fair?
That's about all I have. Other than that, I think that it's going to be a strong couple of months.
Yep, it's going to be an uphill battle. Alex, thank you so much for the call.
No problem, Neil. Take care.
You too. Yeah, I mean, listen, when you have about 95% of bureaucrats in Washington voted for the Democrat in Hillary Clinton, these Washington, D.C. insiders, first of all, they don't like the drain the swamp message because they are the swamp. They want to make sure that they're in D.C. and that their jobs aren't gone. So, frankly, Republicans, the establishment overall is anti-Trump, and they want globalist policies. Unlike President Trump, and that leads us to our quote of the day. And the quote of the day is from the president at his joint address, and this: "The time for small thinking is over. The time for trivial fights is behind us. We just need the courage to share the dreams that fill our hearts, the bravery to express the hopes that stir our souls, and the confidence to turn those hopes and those dreams into action." A great message. Now, coming up, we will get our exclusive interview from Michael Cutler, a retired Immigration and Naturalization Service agent, about the heroin epidemic that has swept the United States. That and more on the Neil A. Carousso Show when we return.
When it comes to saving money,
What? Parents!
don't act like a baby.
Oh, it's like they're having their own little meeting. This is so humiliating.
Be the boss.
I'm the boss.
What the?
Power nap. You were saying.
And make a budget.
Let's get to work.
Need a little help?
Stacy, read back the notes.
I can't read. What's it say?
Create a personalized savings plan and get other tools and tips
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
at feedthepig.org.
So the Neil A. Carousso All right, we are back on the Neil A. Carousso Show. So, Mexican drug cartels have monetized the heroin business, and the drugs are going to your youth. And that is what FBI Director James Comey said this week in Virginia. We had a chance to sit down for an exclusive interview with a retired Immigration and Naturalization Service agent and our immigration expert, Michael Cutler. Take a look. All right, joining us is my immigration expert, former retired Immigration Naturalization Service agent, Michael Cutler. Mr. Cutler, always a pleasure.
Good to be with you.
All right, well, that is part of our exclusive interview with Michael Cutler, retired immigration agent. So when we come back, you can Skype us at Neil A. Carousso, and we'll take your calls. We will also talk further about immigration. You're not going to believe what a judge did to protect a criminal illegal alien. That's coming up on the Neil A. Carousso Show.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wild.
Neil A. Carousso tells you what you need to know, opening up the dialogue. Straightforward talk that drives the political establishment crazy.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. Period.
What, like with a cloth or something? I don't know how it works digitally at all.
He's got the knack for it. The knack for America. Subscribe to the Neil A. Carousso Show podcast on iTunes and log on to neilacarousso.com.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning.
It's time to open the dialogue. Grab a cup of coffee and chat with Neil A. Carousso via Skype.
All right, we're back on the Neil A. Carousso Show. My guys are telling me a little tech issue, so if you're seeing any streaming issues, we apologize. We will re-upload the recording later, so you should be able to see everything fine. So we apologize if you're seeing any technical issues. But let's talk about sanctuary courtrooms, apparently. An Oregon judge is being accused of helping an illegal immigrant escape ICE agents. So you heard that correct. Judge Monica Herranz is the judge, and she allegedly let Ditter Pasqueo Salazar slip through a private door in her office when a courtroom staffer noticed ICE agents waiting in the hallway. And she let him go out the back door. Salazar was in court on a drunken driving charge, and she just let him walk out the door of the courtroom. Now, ICE agents were able to catch up with him and detain him, but she feared that he would be deported, so she thought she would be protecting him, at the expense of protecting Americans by letting him free. after a DUI charge. This is a judge not upholding the law. So what's going on in certain parts of the country and certain people that have certain motivations that really don't help Americans, this is despicable. It really is. And to just let this person walk free after committing a crime, is here illegally, as a judge, I mean, I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer. Let the law play it out. This is outrageous. This judge should be let go. Coming up, we have our Real Deal segment. We have a topic and a message for you about veterans and supporting them. That's coming up on the Neil A. Carousso Show. Don't go anywhere.
It's a rhetoric. Things get lost in the rhetoric every day. We must support those who protect 40 the ages of 30 to 50. Do your part to give back to our heroes. Our Heroes Night Out is a non-profit organization that helps and supports U.S. veterans by having gatherings with homeless vets at the United Veterans Beacon House at the Northport VA on Long Island, New York.
Sometimes it's just easier for people to say, well, I'll give you a chance.
Blessed to be joined tonight.
All right, well, first time we're having technical issues on the show, so I apologize. That was a really an emotional moment, and I said earlier this week on the podcast that if you didn't cry, I got choked up myself by watching that moment where the Navy SEAL Ryan Owens' widow, Corinne, was called by the president at the joint address, and she was crying and looking up to the heavens, saying, "Thank you, baby." It was really a incredible moment, and not to give you, I'm not even going to give the opposition the time of day, what they said, but that was an emotional moment, an honest moment. And this is where I want to tell you about supporting our veterans. Friday night, one of my guys, Christian Latagossi, a friend and a colleague here on the Neil A. Carousso Show, we went to an event Friday night, and he took some incredible pictures that I didn't even know he was taking, to be honest with you. And this is the whole group. Those are all the veterans that attended the evening from the Northport VA on Long Island. This is Corey, and I was speaking with him. He sang a cappella, and there you see him singing. It was his voice was just incredible. We're going to do a story on him and let him tell his story. He had such a beautiful singing voice and was telling us about his life and all the adversity that he overcame. All of these veterans have stories, personal stories that they have. It's not only did they go and fight for our country, fight for our freedom, our nation's sovereignty, promote liberty. They come home, they have other goals and aspirations, and a lot of them have a hard time finding work. They're homeless. I talked to someone who is living in her car, got treatment at the VA, and it's really, it's sad when you see it and when you talk to these veterans who are suffering every single day just to live day to day. And if you have the opportunity, talk to a veteran, thank them, and talk to them about their story, and they'll open up to you because, frankly, they just need people to talk with, and that's why I'm such a proud supporter of Our Heroes Night Out and some of the local organizations that do such incredible work. So we're going to be telling these veteran stories, and I connected with a lot of people who work every day with vets, don't take any money for it, work at VFWs across New York and other places. And, to put this in such a way that you honor their service, because we would not be free. We would not be here as Americans being able to do what we do. For me to be able to do a show, I would not be able to do that if these brave men and women didn't fight for us. They are our heroes. These celebrities last Sunday that went nuts at the Oscars and attacked our politics and attacked people who support the president, they're not role models. Our veterans, people who gave up their life, that were fighting, they were seeing combat at 18 and 19, and even veterans who didn't see combat. They come back, they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, emotional issues, they get caught up in substance abuse, and we will continue to spotlight that on this program and see how they overcome their adversity, because what they do, what they have done, is incredible, and really there are not so many words to describe it, because you almost become breathless over thinking about what they put themselves through. And I just want to ask you something. Would you stand a post for this country? Would you stand a post to continue to support our American freedom, to promote liberty in other places? You may have an opinion. You may say, well, we shouldn't be talking to certain countries, or we shouldn't be engaging in diplomatic relationships with certain countries. But at the end of the day, what are you doing about that? What are you doing to promote liberty and promote justice? Or do you just have a loud mouth? It's about actually putting those words to paper and putting that into fruition. So I want to thank all of those who have served, who continue to serve our country. And there are some incredible organizations out there that you can get involved with or talk with veteran. And frankly, a lot of them that come back, there are 39,500 veterans homeless on a given night. And you have a high unemployment rate, especially among those who are older, and they're not given opportunities. And a lot of that is because they don't trust them to handle equipment the right way. Rance Mango, we did a story on him, and he looks so much better. We saw Christian can attest to this. We saw him on Friday, and he couldn't have looked better. He even got dressed up in a suit because he said, "Well, I rather look nice than be wearing jeans and be left out." So he looked incredible. And they keep in touch with me, and Rance is such an incredible story, and these brave men and women who gave up their lives to support us. We have to do our part to respect them and get back to them. And it's not just veterans. It's those currently serving the military and law enforcement. And one thing for all you young people out there my age or younger, I spoke with people at the VFW who said that there's a real lack of patriotism they find among young people. Why is that? Colin Kaepernick, the 49ers quarterback, now a free agent, came out this past week and said, well, I'm going to stand for the national anthem now. Well, a major coincidence that you're a free agent and unemployed. Why don't you, is all of a sudden the United States not responsible for prejudice and for people suffering? Like, what was this message all about, or was it for attention? If you're going to take a stand every day. Support your country and love your country like we do. That's the message for today. The Neil A. Carousso Show. We'll be back next week. Christian tells me that it's our 1 month anniversary, apparently. So maybe we'll have cake or something. I don't know. The Neil A. Carousso Show next week. We'll see you then, and we'll see you on the podcast tomorrow. Take care.